Mr Speaker.
Mika Whaitiri.
Mr Speaker, the big State House sell-off is real and it's amongst us, and it's the result of this government and their plans to abdicate their responsibility in the state housing space. And Mr Speaker, I wanted to stand and bring a very localised situation that I'm experiencing in the Hastings and Napier area when it comes to a real lack of state housing stock. And I've got numerous reports in the papers that go back months and months that the situation is getting worse. And I'm meeting on a regular basis, Mr Speaker, and it was quite hurtful to hear the Honourable Alfred Ngaro talk about people having to look after themselves. Because, Mr Speaker, I'm proud to say that our first family home was achieved through the subsidisation of my sister's family welfare benefit, and that allowed my family, my parents and 5 siblings, to get on the home ownership ladder, and I acknowledge that. And we're proud, and she keeps reminding us that she actually owns the family home, even though she's 55 now. But in all seriousness, Mr Speaker, there have been some great policies in the past that kept our obligation as a state, as a Crown, to help those that do want to get into home ownership. And I just want to remind this House that those policies in the past did actually work, and we did get people into home ownership. I want to stand and say there's nothing more proud to know that you own your own home. But the reality for a lot of the communities and constituents we represent on this side, just getting a decent roof over their heads for themselves and their family is a basic right for every New Zealander. And like I said, Mr Speaker, I wanted to put a spotlight on 3 areas. And when I spoke earlier in the addressing to the speech from the throne, I highlighted some amazing people, local champions working in the advocacy role at their own will and their own commitment, because they see the hardships many families are facing in the Hastings and Napier area. And I want to acknowledge them, Mr Speaker, for what they do on behalf of those on the long waiting list. Kiri Swindle, she is a wonderful lady from Napier who every Friday at 6 p.m. is in the Clive Square soup kitchen feeding between 15 and 14 homeless, mainly men. 15 to 20 in Napier, who come to her soup kitchen that she provides with her husband. She does not work for any agency. She does not receive any funding. She does this because she sees a need. And so I want to acknowledge what Kitty says, and she, along with the other advocates that I know in Hawke's Bay, we are meeting on a regular basis so that we can bring the issues to the homelessness and the struggles of people both in Napier and Hastings to the public attention, because a lot of it is getting led by this government that everything is kei te pai, when really we all know at the end of it, it isn't. So I want to acknowledge Kitty and her husband for the work they do in Napier. I want to also acknowledge Florence Karaitiana, Mr Speaker, who is another local housing advocate who works in the Raurika, Camberley and Flaxmere area. And Mr Speaker, these women have taken it upon themselves to be informed on the housing situation. They have aerial photographs of all the state homes, Florence does, of Raurika, of Camberley, of Flaxmere, of the state homes. And her questions are, why are they vacant when we have so many on the waiting list? It's a pretty simple question. Hundreds. In fact, they were in my electorate office and we literally counted each state homes from these areas, area maps, and we got up to at least 100 in those 3 suburbs. So it baffles me, Mr Speaker, when we hear from the government that they've got a housing plan, when in reality, when I go back to my electoral office in the Hastings and Napier office, I have people coming in daily waiting for State House. And Mr Speaker, it is just not fair. In Maraenui, Mr Speaker, we have over 100 vacant state homes boarded up. And I want to acknowledge that we have had some new 2-bedroom, future-proofed homes built in Maraenui, but the supply is not keeping up with the demand. Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Sarah Dowie.
Mr. Speaker.